I think when I was a bit younger, I thought that just like one drummer did everything. So they do touring and they do the studio work, but quite often that isn't the case. You know, like I was speaking to a few other drumming friends and they were saying, you know, I play on the live tour, and I was like, oh, so you just play what you played in the studio on the live show then? And they were like, no, I didn't play on the album. So there's clearly like a distinction in some of those things, but you do them both.
Yeah, well, it's especially in pop music, because so much of pop music, like, my good pal Mark Schulman, he's very capable of playing on any Pink song he needs to play on, but Pink might have 10 different producers on a particular record, and most of them like working with programmers, and they're in their, Pro Tools. And it's like, it's just been such a different thing. Now, at least in Nashville, classic rock music moved to Nashville. So we ran with that ball where it's like live players on the studio floor. And then starting in the 80s and 90s in Nashville, there was the guys that kind of went out and worked the road. And there was this small collective of guys, kind of like the A-Team, that kind of like the wrecking crew that played on everything. And then as Nashville started to change and open up, with me starting in 2003, I was in a band called Rushlow, and we played on our own record. And then that led to me doing the Aldean thing. And of course, we played on every track for Aldean, every award show, every music video. It's been so great to be involved in something like that. And there's so many guys that are qualified to do the studio and the road, but sometimes it just comes down to the artist's camp, to their philosophy, to what the label wants, what their producer is comfortable working in. And my advice would be just to try to do as many sessions as you can with as many people as possible, and do as many live gigs with people as you possibly can. And that word will get around, and you'll cultivate a reputation. And then before you know it, that reputation will precede you. And then it's on you to exceed the expectations of your reputation. And it's just this kind of ongoing thing. But am I grateful that I get to go in the studio with my best friends, make something that's going to exist for all time? Yeah. And then get to go out with my best friends and go out and take that music and bring it to life and have that visceral interaction, that high form of communication with the audience, and share that moment together and impact those people and change those. It's awesome. It satisfies two different sides of my creative personality,
Yeah. And so do you approach every like studio session as a blank canvas, or do you have certain like things that you will run through?
Yeah, definitely the blank canvas. Like, so, first of it's like having the tools. So if you get called to say like work on, say like a Nashville demo session where you're booked from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And in that amount of time, you'll probably record anywhere between 3 and 5 songs. So the pace is very, very quick. So you want to have a nice overall good sounding drum set. So for you, is that a 20 or 22 or 24? So most likely you would pick a 22. And then for the style that you're doing in Nashville, you're going to have either a 12 and a 16 or a 13 and a 16. You're going to have some good all around cymbals that'll work for a lot of different styles. Pop, country, you could play them a little bit softer for the traditional thing. Then you might want to have a collection of snare drums where it's like, this is my Spin Doctor snare drum, this is my Bonham snare drum, this is my Gadd workhorse drum, this is my Mick Fleetwood Rumors baseball bat and the birthday cake. So somehow you can get those 5 different sounds and get them very quickly. And then you have the tea towels, and you have brushes, and you have rods, and you have a chain that you can hang on the cymbal for rivets. And then have a little system where you can program loops. And then you have some quick basic overdub things like shake your tambourine, maraca, congas, bongos. And you could get to this stuff and you're super organized. You're like a Boy Scout. You can cover a lot of things. So those things are always ready to go. Then I'm sussing out the situation. I'm looking at the artist and their posse, and the songwriters. Are the suits from the label there? Who's the engineer? What sounds is this room known for? Who are the other musicians on the studio? I'm like a psychiatrist and a conductor all at the same time, right? You got to learn how to read the room. But now for a Jason Aldean session, it's the same cast of characters, same studio, same catering, same players, same engineer. We know each other inside and out. It's like, hey, Rich, how you doing? This guy, Pete Coleman, that did all the Blondie records and the Pat Benatar records, and he did My Sharona for the Knack. And so he's coming from that, like working in LA, in England, in LA, he brought that skill set to Nashville, and he goes, "Hello, love, good to see you. Let's get the sounds." And he's all, you know, so he does his thing, and I go in there. He's like, "Rich, just give me the boom, boom. Now, just the snare, love. God, okay, kick, snare, hat. So just the toms, just cymbals and kick. Give me the whole thing, love." And he goes, "Great, it's great as usual. I'm going out for a smoke." Boom. And then I meet him outside, and he's smoking. We have our coffee, and then the musicians come in, the charts get passed out. We're making history. We've got this down to a finely tuned mechanism. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of like home base. And then any other recording session I do is kind of like we cheat on each other. But when we cheat on each other, we get that new experience. And as a result of that new experience, we could bring that experience back to home base.
Yeah.
And then Los Angeles, the sessions that I've done are more painstakingly slow because traffic is so bad, and people are just like, let's hold up for the whole day. You know, drum sounds at 10 a.m. means not drum sounds at 10 a.m. It means you arrive at 10 a.m. and then you mill about and you have some coffee and you start getting some sounds, and at least in my experience. But I'm sure if, you know, Bernie Dressel or Vinny or Alex Acuna or one of these guys that are doing all these Marvel soundtracks, that's like big business. You know, you're at Capitol Records, there's 100-piece orchestra with the SMPTE time code on the back. I'm sure that's more, you know, that type of thing, which is what I would love to get into, because that doesn't exist in Nashville. So I'm kind of looking at my next 20 years. So what I've been doing is I've been looking on the IMDb. So I look on imdb.com and I look up movie composers, and I've been just cold emailing movie composers and be like, "Hey, you don't know me from Adam, but I played on a couple of #1 songs, and I can read and I can play styles. Love to meet you sometime. Can you keep me on your list?" And sometimes it's like crickets, and other times it's like, "Oh, cool, man. Yeah, when this opens up, let's go get some coffee, or I'll save your number." Just kind of putting yourself out there is something that people should be open to.